Well, Dimitry, thanks for joining us today, and appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
I wanted to specifically talk to you because you have a kind of a professional way of handling your development of ideas, and I just wanted to have you go through what is the process that you use to determine one, if the idea that you've thought of is marketable, is going to be a viable invention, is patentable. What's the mental steps what are the mental steps that you go through to figure out if this is worth even pursuing?
Well, usually something comes across my space or my desk, and I end up looking at it or thinking of an idea. And I often actually take some time before I really think that this is something viable. It tends to gnaw at me for a little while. And then once I've decided, you know what, this is worth looking into, I start to think about, well, what kind of market size is there? Is this a product that's for an age group, or is this something that's going to be a lot more, penetratable, I guess is the word, into mass market. And then from there, since I guess, live in a litigious society, I'll say, I want to protect myself, because obviously if this is something that I feel is worthwhile, that's going to make a lot of money. The more money you make, the more people you attract. And the next thing you know, you are, trying to get from behind the eight ball back up running, because most of these corporations are probably more liquid than you are.
Right. Okay. And so have you had ever any instances where you've really thought highly of a product, but then you just have come to the conclusion there's no market for it?
Yeah. Sometimes what actually happens more often than not is not that there's no market for it, but the cost to produce it is too high, or it's too complicated, or it is not enough of a margin for there to be profit for everybody involved. So that is more of my experience. Clearly, I've come across some ideas that I thought were good, and I do a lot of bouncing off with people. Try to bounce off with people who are not my friends, who are not related to me, so that I get a true, actual answer.
Right.
I find myself to sometimes bounce things off with people like yourself, or someone who's got a creative mind, who understands the ropes that we go through to try to get something valid. And I'm truthful with people too. There are sometimes that people tell me a product that I know going to hurt their feeling a little bit, but that I can't do it, and it's not going to be a winner. And I have to tell them, listen, you know what? I love the passion. My personal thought is, this perhaps isn't for going to be what it is. But if if I'm wrong, let me know. And I guess that's an answer.
Yeah. Okay. So then, you are obviously looking at ideas with the thought of pursuing a venture yourself.
Yes.
As opposed to licensing. I mean, have you ever had ideas that you've licensed or thought about maybe that's the better option?
It's funny because, I just recently came back from this licensing show in Vegas to learn that licensing is a lot different than what the general public thinks, including myself as an inventor. You think, oh, listen, license is wonderful. I'll call up Disney, for example, on my haircut product. I say, I'm here. And they say, it's wonderful. I'm glad you're here. Yes, we'll be more than happy to license this. Give us $500,000. And you can now use our product. We want a 6 or 7% royalty, and we want you to produce it, ship it, warehouse it, sell it, deal with the logistics, the returns. So licensing isn't exactly what everybody thinks it is.
Yeah, certainly at that scale, you can have some issues. So, okay. So what would you advise to the person who is, say, a brand new newbie at this inventing thing? They have a full-time job already, but they've got this idea, and it just keeps gnawing at them, like you say, and they want to do something with it. They want to pursue it. What steps should they look at first?
Well, I will tell you that I learned this the hard way, that once you start this process of doing not just the search, but applying for either a provisional utility patent or a design patent, you start this time clock. And this time clock, as comes really quick. Yes. And is definitive. If in a year from the time of your provisional patent, you don't apply for a non-provisional patent, you're done. You've lost every right. It becomes public information. And then once that happens, listen, if I have a great product, what about the rest of the world? And consequently right now, as you know, I'm in the middle coming October, I'm going to have to decide for the Boss Ab Blaster whether or not I'm going to start taking some international protection. So I think the smartest thing, and I don't know how you feel about it, is to Google what you think your product is, to see if it's out there. I mean, just to do a little bit of research. You'd be surprised that a lot of the times you think that you're unique in your thought, but you realize, oh, somebody already thought about this and it's 19 years old,
Right.
So it is that process, and realize that it's expensive. If you go through the process and you're lucky enough to get the non-provisional utility patent, then you have to get a design team or an engineer to create computerized CAD files so that the people overseas can then incorporate that information so engineers can talk to engineers without having any words going back and forth with the language barrier. And then tooling and molds, those are brutally expensive, especially the larger the product.
Right.
Hair cones are $18,000 for tooling, and the thing is this big.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so that's interesting because you have the two products that you're working now.
Right.
You have one kind of a complicated exercise device, and then what you would think would be a fairly simple hair accessory product for like the teen market. Is that kind of where you're?
Young girl. We've broken it up into different tiers, but basically what it is a hair accessory that snaps into your hair that creates a ponytail in the shape of a cone. And the patentable idea is we have covers that can be created and designed in any pattern. It's basically a blank canvas for whatever you want. Teenagers, high in fashion, and young girls for arts and crafts kits.
Yeah. You had a website running on that, right?
Yeah, GenieCone.com.
GENIE cone.com. Okay. So people can look at that. So something like that, you said the tooling is $18,000. I know we had some patent expenses, obviously, the patent search first.
Sure.
Did you spend any money on market research, or did you do that yourself through Google and online?
I actually, it was unique because the truth of it is that there was an original product that was around that was very, not similar, but had the concept of a hair accessory product my father was involved with. And they ended up doing that for many years and then put it aside. And we're going back to like 1980s. So I got enthralled by the idea of going on to the TV shows like Shark Tank and so forth. And I pulled this thing out, and I guess my aha moment was that it looked like it was aged. It was called cracked marble. So I took a piece of paper and I wrapped the paper around it and cut it and trimmed it. And I started doodling on it to try to get some kind of designs. And I don't know why, but I turned it upside down. As soon as I turned it upside down and the cover slipped off, I was like, this is going to be great, because now one cone in your hair, you can do covers, fashion shows. You go to the gym in the morning, you have something like that. You snap in the high cone. You go to work and then you snap in something else for the evening cocktail dress, and there you go. So, that inspiration came to me because of a product that I had known about decades before, but was much more simple. The one for, let's say, the Boss Ab Blaster.com. The Boss Ab Blaster machine, that was actually a design from 1987 when I was in college, because I couldn't actually get the kind of exercise that I really wanted to get out in terms of isolating my abs. So I created it and threw it on a shelf, and I think that was our first introduction to each other. You were working with my commercial professional machine. That was the first.
Yeah.
And by the way, we should pat ourselves on the back, because we are 4 for 5. And what that means to the people who are watching this is we went for 5 patents so far. 4 of them have been issued, and one we fought real hard over and over and over again and finally gave up on.
Yeah. I wish I could say that's par for the course, but it's really more like half on utility patents. So,
and you know what? That tells me that I got a unique product, obviously.
That's right. There's definitely merits to your invention, and the patent office saw that in at least 4 of the cases. So,
hey, listen, if you were a baseball player right now, you'd be the highest paid baseball player.
Right.
So.
All right. Well, good. Well, any other advice that you would give to new inventors, just to I don't know, let them avoid some pitfalls and spending all their life savings on something that is really not worth pursuing? I mean, how do you save people from doing that?
Do all of your groundwork research before you pull the trigger, because that's free but your time. Bumping into people. I mean, can't tell you how many times I'd be in a restaurant or something like that before I really decided to do this, and we'd be talking with my friends, and there'd be a woman there that was, the table was long black, and I would show her this and be like, would you wear this, and depending on what her answer was, some people would be like, no, it's not for me. And, you take it and you move on, because you're not going to please everyone. One of the things I will say is that the world is huge in terms of the market. So even if you get 1/10 of 1/10 of 1%, you're still selling hundreds of thousands, if not millions of units. But all the legwork that you can do before you start that trigger and that time clock, you know, in terms of the patent, doesn't cost you anything but time, and you get some real feedback, especially from people who aren't your friends. Don't go to people that you're like, hey, buddy, I want you to do this. And yeah, we're hanging out this weekend, because they're going to tell you possibly the truth, but they're also going to probably tell you a little less of the true curve.
Right. And the other thing is, the more, and I don't know if you've done some crowdfunding.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I like about crowdfunding is those are obviously strangers, and they're going to be voting with their money.
Yes.
They back your project. They have put up their credit card and they say, I want one or two or whatever the reward is. And that's people who you don't know for the most part. So that's another way.
Let me also elaborate a little more on that. One of the genius things about crowdfunding is that your inventory is already sold before you get it. So to me, the brilliant of all the things, I've started lots of different companies of all different things. And the hardest thing is, if you're in a sales-oriented thing, getting customers. If you want to have fulfillment, it's like, okay, you need inventory. Now the inventory sits, and people tend to do that and say, okay, now let me sell, when it's got to be a nice balance in between. And the thing I love about Kickstarter is it creates both at the same time. You get your backers to say, yes, I'm thinking this product, I like this product, I'm willing to wait the time that it takes, and everybody understands that it's a new venture, so there's going to be glitches. But then once the product comes and it hits your ports and it hits your warehouse, it's gone. It's gone. 3 weeks later, it's gone, all gone. And there you go.
It's a pre-order. It's the best kind of money to get. It's better than a loan because you don't have to pay it back. And it's better than equity in your company because now you don't have partners and shareholders, right? So
100%, man, 100%. Yeah. And you have a proven proof of concept, and you already know beforehand, I need to get 500 units. I need to get 1,000 units. I need to get 2,000 units. And then you leave it so you have yourself a couple dozen samples.
Right. And plus it's a story. It's a story to tell your next customer or investor.
Absolutely. Anytime that I've tried to promote this, I've reflected to my Kickstarter campaign in terms of a link. Yep. Along with a YouTube channel is a very nice thing to do, to get a customized YouTube channel. So that, for example, it's, you know, www.youtube.com/C/, and in my case, it's Boss Ab Blaster. And now you have all the instructional videos, and we're going to start one that's going to, of course, be YouTube/C/Genie Cone.
Right.
You have blogs of girls doing the kind of things. Also, really understanding the idea of the digital platform is taking over a lot of market share, and you really have to feel like you have to dive in, whether you like it or not. And I'm not saying it's Instagram or saying it's Facebook. You know, the world of TV is getting less and less, and this thing right here is taking over more and more.
Yeah, I hear you.
I tell you how many times I'll go onto Facebook and I'll just see something in whatever fitness field or whatever field it is, and I click on that group, and the next thing you know, you're just getting bombarded with some sponsored ads, some non-sponsored ads, but you know, their analytics are real hot. They know exactly how to target, so why not utilize that tool to reach tens of thousands of people for not that expensive of a cost?
Right. Right. I hear you.
But
all right, Dimitry.
First, just so you know, your part is one of the most important, because once you have something good, there's only one way to really protect it.
Yeah, well, like they say, innovation without patents is charity, right?
I like that. I like that saying. I'm gonna try.
That was an IBM VP who said that. I'll have to look him up so I can quote him. But
all right, we won't. Then you won't take credit. I got it.
All right. Well, Dimitry, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I'm sure we will talk soon. I wish you the best on all your ventures.
Sounds great. I'll definitely keep you in the loop. And listen, it was a pleasure. Take care.